What is going on, y'all? This is Pay Me in Dividends, and today is March 3rd, 2025. This year is flying by. We're already in March of 2025. So what I want to talk about today is Bitcoin or crypto in general and the volatility of crypto and how we can take advantage, how we can capitalize, how we can leverage this volatility of Bitcoin specifically, but really the crypto market, because I want to take a look at a few different ETFs that generate cash flow or dividend income for my income investors, right? So that we can create that steady cash flow. So the first thing we need to look at is Bitcoin, right? So today Bitcoin is over $90,000 a coin as of today, right? But let's take a look at the chart, right? So on a 1 month chart, it is down 2%. But remember, guys, when I came out with my previous video just a few days ago, Bitcoin was down 20% over the past month. Now it's down 2% over the past month. So what does that tell you? That tells you that this is a very, very volatile asset, as we all know, right? We can see this huge decline right here just within the matter of a few days. Now, it's difficult to pinpoint exactly what caused this, but what we do know is that the market is volatile, and when the market drops down like this, that is opportunity to load up on assets that generate cash flow, right? So this is what I want to show you guys. I want to show you guys a few different options that you have, a few different ETFs that you can buy or just put on your watch list. Again, this is not financial advice, but it's just something to be on the lookout for if you are in the crypto or you are in the Bitcoin or you just want to capitalize off of the volatility. Because remember, guys, these ETFs that we invest in, these high yield ETFs, it's all about volatility. What these ETF managers are essentially doing is they are performing options on volatile assets. They're extracting the premium from the options, and then they're paying you out that premium from the options in the form of a dividend. So again, what we're going to talk about is how to leverage the volatility of Bitcoin / crypto to create cash flow via dividends. So the first one I want to look at is BITO, right? BITO from ProShares. And as we can see on their page, it says BITO aims to produce returns that correspond to Bitcoin, right? So let's look at the investment objective just to get some insight as to what it is that they're actually doing, right? So BITO seeks results before fees and expenses that correspond to the performance of Bitcoin. So BITO invests in Bitcoin futures and does not invest directly into Bitcoin, right? So there's no guarantee that the fund will track Bitcoin's returns, but it's investing in Bitcoin futures, right? So if we look at the holdings, we can go down here and we can see the holdings, right? So you can see that they have a couple different holdings. Of course, they have some futures as it was in their objective, right? They have some treasury bills. These are usually just to sustain their stability, and they do usually get a small yield off of these treasury bills as well. But I think the most important part we want to look at is the distributions, right? So we can see that they do pay out on a monthly basis, and this one is interesting, right? You can actually do options on this. So although they're already paying you out a dividend, you can actually perform options on this as well and receive even more dividends. So let's see if we can look at the distribution so that you guys can get an idea of what they've paid out so far, right? So we can see that it goes back to 2023. Looks like their first payment was in February of 2023, and they do pay on a monthly basis. Now again, guys, remember with these funds, it's all about volatility and what they're able to extract from the option market on that given month. So the payments are going to fluctuate, but this just gives you a general idea of what it is that they pay on a monthly basis. Again, these are, the variance in payments here are very big, so it's going to fluctuate a lot depending on the performance of Bitcoin at that moment in time. But you can see that they've paid a consistent monthly dividend, right? So this is your first option. And again, we know ProShares is a really big ETF manager, right? They have a bunch of different ETFs to choose from, so they are pretty trusted, right? So that's the first one. Now the second one I want to look at, and you guys may be familiar with these already, but it's just to give you a refresher, right? So that you know that you have options and so that you can capitalize off of the market in real time, right? So the next one we have is YBTC, right, from Roundhill Funds. Now we know that they have XDTE, QDTE, and RDTE as well, which is based off the S&P 500, the NASDAQ 100, and the Russell 2000. Now this one is based off of Bitcoin, right? So let's look at the holdings. We can see that they have IBIT, right, which is a Bitcoin ETF within itself, and they basically just hold options on these different things, and then they extract that premium and then they pay you out in the form of a dividend. So if we go to the distributions, we can see that they have been paying a very consistent dividend. Now the interesting one about this is they actually pay on a weekly basis, along with XDTE, QDTE, and RDTE. YBTC also pays on a weekly basis, right? So you'll be getting that dividend, that distribution in your brokerage account every single Friday. So this is a very interesting one. I think this is probably one of the better ones just because of that weekly payment. And so you guys let me know in the comments, what do you think about YBTC? So we're going to move on to the next one, and this is from Simplify ETFs, ticker symbol MAXI or Maxi. And again, this one is a Bitcoin strategy ETF. It seeks capital gains through an actively managed Bitcoin strategy, right? And so we can go here to the holdings, and we can see that they have a bunch of different options as well. You can see that they have a bunch of puts, which are just a form of options. They also have some calls in here as well. So you can see that this one is actually very actively managed. They have a lot of open option contracts going on, which is good, right? Because they're able to capitalize off of an asset that is very volatile and moves a lot on a day-to-day basis, right? So if we go over here and look at the distributions, this one has been consistent with the payouts as well. You can see on their website down here, they have actually been paying out since 2022, right? So this is one of the older Bitcoin option ETFs, and you can see that their payments have been very consistent. There has been a bit of a variance, but a lot of these have actually been very consistent. You can see that most of 2023 they actually paid about 15 cents per share, right? And about 5-6 month stretch here they paid $1 a share, $2 a share, and so you can see those dividends are pretty consistent. So guys, again, that's just another option. This is, I'm not telling you exactly what to invest to, but this is just to get those wheels turning so that you can understand that there are options on the market out there if you do want to invest in Bitcoin, but you want to actually earn a yield on your Bitcoin. Although this is not the same as investing directly into Bitcoin, but you do get that indirect exposure and you're able to generate that yield, right? So the next one we're going to look at is BTCI from Neos, right? So it looks like as of today, they're paying about a 29% dividend yield. We'll call it 30%. And we can see here on their holdings that their main ETF is actually a HODL, right? HODL from VanEck Bitcoin ETF manager, right? And so they hold this, and then of course they perform options on it, right? So if we go over here to the distributions, we can also see that they have been pretty consistent, right? We can pull up the 2024 chart, and this one is actually a bit newer. But you know what I like about NEOS is all of their ETFs tend to be very, very consistent as far as the distribution amount. If you guys don't know about QQQI, which is based off the NASDAQ, or SPY-I, which is based off of the S&P, or IWMI, which is based off of the Russell, these are 3 other ETFs that NEOS ETFs has in their portfolio or in their catalog, and they tend to pay a very, very predictable monthly distribution. They're not as high as some of these, hyper yielding ETFs, but it is very consistent and it is very predictable. And I think they're kind of foundational ETFs if you're really trying to build a strong income portfolio. So this one could also be an option to invest in, right? So the next one we're going to look at is YBIT from YieldMax. Now, I'll be honest, guys, I'm not a fan of this. I do have 2 positions in YieldMax, NVIDIA, MVDY, which is based off of NVIDIA, and then of course MSTY, which is based off of Strategy. But other than that, I'm not a fan of all of their ETFs, but I do think that this is worth mentioning because they have been paying a dividend pretty consistently since 2024. Now, the thing about these YieldMax ETFs, if they don't really invest directly into the underlying asset, it's mostly synthetic options, which basically gives you some exposure to the underlying asset, but you're not directly invested into it. And you can see here, right, the fund does not invest in or seek exposure to the current spot or cash price of Bitcoin, and spot is basically just whatever the price of Bitcoin is at that current moment, right? But they still leverage that volatility and they're able to generate a dividend. Now, I will say the chart on YBIT, if you just pull up the chart and take a look at it, it looks horrendous. I would never personally invest into YBIT if I'm trying to get some crypto exposure. That's just me, but I do think it is worth mentioning because a lot of people do invest in it nonetheless, right? That's just my opinion, but some other people may like YBIT, so I think it's worth mentioning, right? Now, the next one we're going to look at is CEPI from Shares. Now, this is another ETF manager that I really, really like. I do hold shares in AIPI, which is their AI slash tech ETF, and they generate about a 34% dividend yield. And what I like about them is that it is very, very, very consistent. Now, this one is kind of a wild card, right? And I think out of all of them, this is probably your safest bet. And I'm going to tell you exactly why, right? So if we go down here to the holdings, you can see that they actually invest in crypto related companies that engage in crypto related activities, right? So they're actually a bit more diversified than just relying on the volatility of Bitcoin. They actually have big companies that we all recognize, right? Visa, MasterCard, Micron Technology, AMD, NVIDIA, right? PayPal, Robinhood. So these are all companies that we are very familiar with, and they're companies that may invest directly or indirectly into crypto, but it still has that built-in diversification, right? So I think this is probably the safest one out of all of them. Now, this one is very new, right? They haven't paid out many distributions. I think there's only been about 2 payouts so far, if I'm correct. Yep. So 2 payouts so far, $1.69 in January and $1.57 just last week. But I think this one will be pretty good, right? As of today, they're paying a 42% yield. Again, Shares, they tend to be very, very consistent with that yield. If we look at AIPI, it has paid a consistent 34 to 35% yield. And if we look at FEPI, which is their oldest income ETF, they have paid that consistent 25% yield since 2023, right? So I think you can really get some consistency with these REX ETFs, and I think any of them are really a good play if you're looking for consistent income. But again, for this video, we're just going to focus on CEPI since it is their flagship crypto income ETF. So that's another option for you guys that you can consider adding to your portfolio if you want some crypto exposure and to generate some income off of that crypto exposure. Right now, the last one we're going to take a look at, again, we all know about MSTY, and this is something that I am invested in myself as well. Now, the cool thing about MSTY is, again, the fund does not invest directly into strategy, right? Strategy is the underlying asset, MSTR, formerly known as MicroStrategy, but now strategy, right? But what they do is they play off of that volatility, and they're able to pay out a huge dividend. They have consistently paid over 100% annualized dividend yield since the inception of this fund. So in other words, every single dividend that's been paid out since April of 2024 has been over 100% yield annualized, right? So I think this is one that you can consider. As we all know, if we take a look at the chart from MSTY, it is over $20 a share again. We can see that its 52-week low did drop to about $18 a share. But if we max out the chart, we can see it's down about 4% all time. But again, you're getting that crazy dividend yield, right? So when you actually account for total return, which means that you're accounting for the dividends that were paid out, you're actually up on this, right? And this could actually be a good price to start a position, considering that its all-time high is $46 a share. But again, this is not financial advice. I'm not telling you guys that you should buy this one. I'm just relaying the information, and then you go ahead and do your due diligence, do your research, and make a decision on what it is you want to do. But again, it's all about how to leverage the volatility of the crypto market in order to create cash flow, because I am myself an income investor first. So I'm always trying to find ways on how to capitalize on the stock market so that I can continue to generate cash flow and continue to increase that cash flow. So before we leave here, guys, I just want to thank every single subscriber. We are now over 1,500 subscribers on the channel. I'm trying to be as consistent as possible. You guys let me know in the comments, did I miss any ETFs that are worth mentioning? You guys let me know in the comments, what is your favorite way to generate yield off of crypto? You guys let me know. As always, I appreciate you stopping by the channel, and I will catch you in the next video.